name Yahushua, who's our Messiah, who died for our sins. Hallelujah. And we will be starting off in Bereshith chapter 2 and verse 7. Okay, and what we're going to talk about here, yeah, that sounds better right there. What we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about Adam and his life and some of the things that he did and some of the things that he didn't do. Okay? And so this is when Yahuwah formed Adam from the dust of the earth. That's Bereshith chapter 2 verse 7. It says, "And Yahuwah Elohim formed man out of the dust from the ground, and breathed into his nostrils breath of lives. And the man became a living being. And Yahuwah Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put man whom he had formed." Okay? So he created a garden where he put man. Okay? Verse 9. "And out of the ground Yahuwah Elohim made every tree grow that was pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil." Verse 10. "And a river went out of Eden to water the garden. From there it divided and became 4 riverheads." Verse 11, "The name of the first is Pishon. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Hawah, where there is gold." That's where the gold's at. And you want some gold. Okay, verse 12, "And the gold of the land is good. Bdellium is there, and the Shotham stone." Verse 13, "And the name of the second river is Gihon, and it is the one surrounding the entire land of Cush. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, and it is the one that goes toward the east of Ashur. And the fourth river is Euphrates." 15, "And Yahuwah took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to work and to guard it." Okay. So, he put him in the garden, and the garden is like, it's almost like a house, okay? And it's also called paradise. And he put everything that he needs right there in that garden, okay? But he gave him an instruction, okay? And what does he tell him to do? He said he put him there to do 2 things: to work in it and to guard it. What does guard mean? To protect. Okay? So he doesn't just put him in the garden and say, everything's all good and you don't never have to do nothing. Okay? There's always something that we have to do. Okay? The Messiah died for us. We receive Him. That's the beginning of a relationship, but we have to also guard that relationship. Okay? We don't just say a prayer and it's all good for the rest of our life and we can live however we want to. Okay, so we have to protect it. Protect it from what? Against the enemy or anything that would get in the way of it being good. So the garden was a good place. Okay, Yahuwah placed Adam in a good place. And He said, all I want you to do is you just tend it, which means take care of it. You work, you know what I mean? Take care of the plants and stuff, and you guard it. Protect it. Verse 16. "And Yahuwah Elohim commanded the man, saying, Eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in that day you eat of it, you shall surely die." Okay? So he lays down some ground rules, okay, for Adam. "And Yahuwah Elohim said, It is not good for man to be alone. I am going to make him a helper as his counterpart." Okay? And that's when He created Hawah, who we used to call Eve, but we know that her proper name is Hawah. Okay? So, there was a job that he was called to do. Okay? He was placed and something was given to him. Okay? He was placed in the garden. He was placed in this house. But he had to guard it and protect it. Okay? That's the same thing with us. Okay? There's things we have to guard and protect in our life. Okay? And there's always going to be things that are going to try to challenge whatever that is. Okay? Now, we don't guard and protect it with the flesh. Okay? We don't do things that way. We guard and protect by the Spirit. Okay? Let's look at chapter 3 and I'll explain it a little bit more. And the Nahash, which is the serpent, was more crafty than all the lives of the field which Yahuwah Elohim made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? Okay. So what happened here? Adam wasn't guarding or protecting, okay? He didn't protect the garden, okay? Because the serpent was able to come into the garden, okay? It's the same thing with us. We have to protect ourselves spiritually. We have to protect our relationships. We have to protect our walk, okay? Against whatever's coming against it. Whether it be physical, whether it be through emotions, whether it be through whatever, okay? You have to protect yourself, okay? You have to guard it. You have to keep it. It says, verse 2, and the woman said to the Nahash, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has says, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. And the Nahash said to the woman, you will certainly not die. Okay. Now, I never noticed this before, just till right now. Remember Yahuwah, back in the last chapter, what does he tell Adam? He says, eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for in that day you eat of it, you shall die. Okay? Now what does Hawah say? She says if you eat of it or if you touch it. Alright? So what happened? She didn't really understand. Okay? So here's how the serpent was able to trick her. One, Adam didn't guard. Okay, and it's not just a man's job, it's talking in general, mankind. Okay? If we don't protect ourselves and protect our walk and protect things like that, then bad things are going to happen to us. Okay? So, one, he didn't protect it, but two, he didn't teach his wife. Because his wife didn't even understand. She said, oh, if you eat it or if you touch it, you die. And here comes the serpent, he goes, I'm not dead. Who is a liar, man? He's lying to you. I'm not dead. I'm still here. Okay? So, obviously, there was a problem there. Right? See, it was his responsibility to guard and protect the garden. Okay? And Adam represents mankind, which means man and woman, not just only women. Okay? And it was his responsibility to teach and train his wife on what she's supposed to do and not supposed to do. Okay? She didn't understand what she was supposed to do, or else she would have said, you just can't eat it. Right? So she was confused. So she was never really, it was never really taught to her properly, or else she would have never been saying something like that. Okay? So now, we run into some problems here. Let's keep reading. Verse 5. For Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, a tree desirable to make one wise, and she took and ate of its fruit. And she also gave it to her husband, and he ate. Why do you think Adam ate? Because she ate it. She was still alive, right? But she didn't understand what they were talking about, okay? She didn't understand what they were talking about here. So Yahuwah tells them, if you eat of this fruit, you'll die. So Hawah eats the fruit, okay? And then she goes to her husband Adam, and she's still alive, and she already bit the fruit. So he's thinking, oh man, maybe we won't die if we eat this. Okay? So he takes a bite. Okay, verse 7. And the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loins covering for themselves. Okay? Verse 8. And they heard the voice of Yahuwah, Elohim, walking about in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam said to his wife, Adam and his wife hid himself from the presence of Yahuwah, Elohim, amongst the trees of the garden. And Yahuwah said to Elohim, and Yahuwah Elohim said to Adam, where are you? Verse 10. We're in Bereshit, or Genesis chapter 3, verse 10. It says, and he said, I have heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself. And he said, who made you to know that you were naked? And have you eaten of the tree which I commanded you that you should not eat? And the man said, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And Yahuwah Elohim said to the woman, have you done this? And the woman said, the Nahash, or the serpent, deceived me, and I ate. 14. And Yahuwah Elohim said to the Nahash, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all the livestock, and more than every beast of the field. And on your belly you shall go, and eat dust all the days of your life. Okay, I'm going to stop there because he judges all three of them. Okay, he judges the serpent, he judges Adam, and he judges his wife, Hawah. Okay? So here's what happens. When the Creator gives us a commandment and we don't keep it, then comes judgment. Okay? So the first thing he's doing is he's judging all three of them. Okay? Because they all three did something wrong. Okay, now how did this all start? Because Adam was to guard or protect. Okay? He was to guard or protect the rules or the laws or the things that Yahuwah told him to protect. Okay? Because he wasn't protecting that, then now he's in trouble, and now he can be judged based upon that. Okay? Because he wasn't guarding the rules, he wasn't paying attention, just like if we don't, with our life, the enemy is able to creep into our lives, and he's able to get us off track. Okay? So Adam here was being judged, the serpent was being judged, and so was Hawah, his wife. Let's look at verse 15. It says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. 16. To the woman he said, I greatly increase your sorrow and your conception. Bring forth children in pain. And your desire is for your husband, and he does rule over you. Okay, so that's her judgment. Now here's Adam's judgment. And to the man he says, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten the tree which I have commanded you, saying, do not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you are to eat of it all the days of your life. And the ground shall bring forth thorns and thistles for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. 19. By the sweat of your face you are to eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For dust you are, and dust you return. Okay, so now he he's bringing forth the death. Remember, he told them, if you eat this fruit, you're going to die. Okay, and then they ate it and they thought, oh, we're not dead. Everything's all right. But now, here comes the judgment. Okay, it didn't happen as soon as they ate it instantaneously. Okay, that's the same thing with us. Sometimes we do something and we get away with it. We think, oh, nothing happened. Everything's okay. Right? And then before you know it, bam. Here comes the judgment of it, or the consequence of whatever you do, whatever the sin is, or however you get yourself in trouble there. So now he cursed him. Okay? Because before he was in this garden, okay, and Yahuwah would spend time with him. He would come and they would walk and they would talk together. Right? And everything was good. That was their place. And they were never going to die until this point. Okay, at this point, he says, okay, now, at some point, you're going to physically die. Okay? So he's saying, that's part of your judgment, is you are going to die. Physically. And he's talking to all of mankind, because Adam is representing all of mankind. So that's man and woman. So he's speaking to all of them. He said, so now you're going to return to the dust. Verse 20, and the man called, the man called his wife's name Hawah, and she became the mother of all the living. And Yahuwah Elohim made coats of skin for man and his wife and dressed them. Okay. Now this right here is prophetically talking about the Messiah dying for us, his blood being shed, because they sinned. Okay, so what did he do? He killed animals and he covered them with the animal skin. He's showing that when you sin, something has to die. When somebody sins, something has to die. Okay, so he was already showing them ahead of time. As soon as they messed up, he already had the answer. Okay, he already knew they were going to make a mistake, but he already had the answer, and he was showing them, okay, now this is what's going to have to happen in the future. My son's going to have to come and die for us that we could be restored to him. Okay? So he kills the animal, and he puts the skins around them. Verse 22, and Yahuwah Elohim said, see, a man has become like one of us to know good and evil. Now lest he put his hand out and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Verse 23. So Yahuwah Elohim set him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. And he drove the man out. And he placed the cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. Okay. So 3 things happened. Okay. The first thing, because of their sin, they were judged. Okay? All 3 were judged with different judgments. The second thing, they were booted out of the garden. Okay? It's a separation. You're separated now from the Father. You're separated from Yahuwah. Okay, and the third thing was death. Okay? That they were going to physically die. Okay? But already from being separated from Yahuwah, in a sense, they were partly dead. Right? That's why it says we're dead in our sins. Okay? Because here's what it's talking about. The creator of heaven and earth and all the things that are in it, Yahuwah, He's life. Okay? So if we're with Him, we're alive. If we're separated from Him, we're pretty much death. Whether we're still physically breathing, we're walking around like spiritually dead. Okay? So it's important to look at His mistake. Okay? Because that mistake brought judgment, brought separation. And we all know that. Okay? If you've ever backslid before, you know people that backslide, okay, have slipped away. Okay, when they make a mistake, okay, then they feel, they don't feel right. They don't, I'm going to just stay away. I'm going to, they, whether it be them or the enemy speaking in their ear, they separate themselves from the congregation, okay, and they put themselves away, and they're around people that can't give them life. So they end up basically spiritually dying, right? Because if somebody, let's say on a physical sense, like with medicine, right? Say you need medicine and you're around people that don't have medicine, guess what? You're going to stay sick, right? People that don't have the Spirit, don't have the set-apart Spirit, they can't give you anything that's going to sustain your life, okay? They don't have nothing to offer you. There's nothing that they can give you that's going to really satisfy and keep you going. Okay? That doesn't mean they won't try. They'll try to do things. Hey, let's go here. I'll help you out with this. But truly, you won't have peace. Okay? So this is what happens to him because of the disobedience. Okay? And that's the same thing that happens to us. And it's dangerous for us to be disobedient because it brings forth judgment, separation, and then death. Okay? Now, from this time, it took 10 generations to get to Noah, which it's in chapter 6. Let's turn to chapter 6 of Bereshith, or Genesis. And it's 10 generations from Adam to Noah. Okay? And in them 10 generations, everything just got progressively worse. Okay? So, pretty much what happens is sin gives birth to more sin, gives birth to death, and just down the line it's just past destruction. So now they're 10 generations from Adam, and here's where Yahuwah is pretty much tired of people altogether, right? He's like, they're so wicked. He said, I'm just going to destroy them. I just want to destroy everybody. I'm sad, you know what I mean, that I even made these people. Pretty much, he was really upset about it. Let's turn to Genesis, Bereshith chapter 6. We'll start in verse 7. It says, And Yahuwah said, I am going to wipe off man whom I have created from the face of the ground, both man and beast, creeping creature, and the birds of heaven, for I am sorry that I have made them. Okay? So he was pretty much fed up with the wickedness. It got to a point where it was horrible, you know. So he's like, I'm pretty much done with them. But verse 8 says, But Noah found favor in his eyes. Found favor in the eyes of Yahuwah. Okay. Now this is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with Elohim. And Noah brought forth 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence. Verse 12. And Elohim looked upon the earth, and saw that it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And Elohim said to Noah, The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And see, I am going to destroy them from the earth. Okay, so he goes to Noah because Noah is right before him. Okay? So he's going to him because of his life, the way he lives. Okay, and that's the same thing with us. Sometimes he'll give us a heads up. If we're living right, if we're doing, you know what I'm saying? He'll let us know ahead of time what's going to happen. He'll give us a way of escape sometimes out of some things. Okay? Now sometimes we'll go through some things. Now why would he do that? Because he says he'll never give us more than we can handle. Okay? Now when I made a commitment and I says, I want to serve you, I'm going to lay down my life. Okay? What does that mean? That means I'm laying down my life. That means if you got to use my life as an example to bring people to you, if I got to go through some hurt so people can see, if I got to go through maybe someone murdering a family member of mine, right? So that the world can see true forgiveness, that I can forgive that person that actually done that. If so be, that's what needs to happen for them to realize and understand who Yahuwah is, then that's what it means to lay down your life. Okay? So it doesn't mean I'm going to serve you and you're going to make everything comfortable all the time and everything's going to go exactly the way I plan and everything's going to go exactly the way I pray. Okay? Because it doesn't. Sometimes people got to see the difference in you before they come to you. Right? Before they say, wow, what are you doing? Who do you serve? What's different about you? Okay? I remember praying for some people that I love. Okay? And I'm expecting, right, one day they're just going to come and they're just going to say, I want to know about this and teach me. And you know what I mean? And it didn't happen that way. It was total opposite. Totally against me, right? And then by the way I responded to that situation, by the way I still, even though at times I was angry and frustrated and mad, even though I still responded in love, okay? even though I was upset and hurt and I did nothing wrong, right? And I had every right to be upset. But because I responded the right way, then it opened the door and they were like, wow, you know what I mean? He's different. See? That's the problem with a lot of us, is a lot of people that read the Word that consider themselves to be believers. See, when they're dealing with situations and circumstances, they act just like the world. So what does the world say? I don't want to be like them. They're just like me. You know what I'm saying? There is no difference. All right? They're saying all this, but they're doing. All right? They're talking about forgiveness, but when I'm looking at them, when I'm watching them and see something happen in their life, and I see them acting just like I act, then they're just a bunch of hypocrites. Right? That's what they see, so that's what they say. Okay? So, that's what it means to lay down your life, is he can use your life, okay? Because his goal is to bring people to him. Okay? That's his goal. Is I want my children to be back with me. That's the Father's goal. I want my children to come back to me through my Son. That's the way, that's the door back to me. Okay? Now I need somebody to go and tell them, to show them, to live like this, okay? And to lay down your life. So whatever he calls us to do. And each of us are different. Each of us have a different calling. Each of us are created differently. Okay? Not all of us are going to go through the same thing. Okay? Just like his followers. Okay? Kepha, who we used to call Peter, but his true name was Kepha, and Shaul, or Paul. Okay? Both of them, they were called, but they had different ministries. Okay? They both went to prison a couple of times, but Paul was stoned multitude of times. Not all the believers were stoned. Some of them were. Okay, some of them got beat down. Some of them got whipped. Okay, just depending. Some of them had to deal with things longer than others. Remember Stephanos? Or Stephen? Right? He was stoned and done away with real quick. Now, Shaul or Paul was stoned multiple times. Okay? So, but his calling was different. So all of us have different callings. So he's going to Noah, to get back to the word here, he's going to Noah and he's telling him, you know what, I'm going to destroy the earth. Okay? So verse 14 it says, make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with a covering. 15. And this is how you are to make it. The length of the ark is 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a window for the ark and complete it to a cubit from above, and set the door of the ark on its side. Make it with the lower, second, and third decks. And see, I myself am bringing floodwaters on the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under the heavens. All that is in the earth is to die. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And all the living of the flesh, 2 of each, you are to bring into the ark, to keep them alive with you, a male and a female. Of the birds after their kind, of the creepy cattle after their kind, of all creeping creatures of the ground after their kind. 2 of each you are to come and to keep them alive. Are to come with you and keep them alive. Verse 21. As for you, take all food that is eaten and gather it to yourself. Then it shall be food for you and for them. Verse 22. And Noah did according to all that Elohim had commanded him. So he did. Okay. Now, there's an important story in there. Okay, this is a covenant that he says he's going to make with him. Okay. But see, there's some things that Noah had to do. Okay. A lot of times we think, I'm just going to pray to the Father and that's all I have to do. And I don't have to do nothing else. And he's going to go abracadabra and he's going to fix everything like that. Okay? That's not always the case. Okay? He said, I'm going to destroy the earth. If you want to live, this is what you need to do. Okay? He was giving him instruction. Okay? If you build this ark, if you gather the food and the animals, you will survive this. If you don't, you will die. Okay? That's what he's saying. So that applies the same thing to us. Okay? Is when we go and we look at His Word. Okay? And we take it for what it is. Okay? That's what we've been learning here. We read the Word. It says what it says. There's so many things we found for years that we weren't doing. Okay? But it says it right there in the Word. So we got a choice to make. Are we going to go and say, well, my grandma didn't do it, my auntie, my great auntie didn't do it, my mom didn't do it, and none of them are doing it, so I'm not going to do it. Okay? Then I'm forfeiting my way of escape. I'm forfeiting my protection. Okay? Obedience brings protection. Okay? Noah was protected from judgment because of his obedience. Okay? Because of Adam's disobedience, he was judged. Okay? Noah's life was also preserved. Not only life, but he preserved the life of mankind because he was going to wipe everybody out if it wasn't for him. Okay? But there were some things that he had to do. Okay? There was some instruction that he had to follow. And that's the same thing with us. Okay? It says as the Messiah gets closer to His turn, He says He's coming back for a bride without spot and blemish. Okay? What does that mean? That means the bride is clean. Okay? It'd be like a bride with a white dress. Everything's done. The hair's done. The makeup's done. Everything's in place. Everything's set. The dress is put on. Everything's nice. Okay? So, here's the thing. As He's getting closer and closer and closer to His return, guess what He's doing? He's getting us more ready, more ready, more ready. He's cleaning us up. You're doing this wrong. You're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be doing this. Okay? So we have a choice. Either we're going to start adjusting and following what the Word says, or else we're not going to be a part of His bride. Okay? Because He's coming for a bride, which is the body of Messiah that is without spot and blemish. Okay? So there's a lot of things that we have to work on still. There's a lot of things that we have to change. So, as we follow and we go through the Word, and as we begin to apply the Word, and we begin to figure out through prayer, okay, what are we supposed to do? What are we not supposed to do? Okay, what's in the Word? Okay, are we supposed to do that? Are we not supposed to do that? Okay, and we go through and begin to apply it to our life. Okay, Noah saved mankind through his obedience. Okay, he saved it. He was protected, but he also had some things to do. Okay? He had to walk some things out. Okay? That's the same thing with us. What did Adam not do? Adam did not guard or protect. Okay? So Yahuwah tells you something. Set nothing wicked before your eyes. Okay? It says it. David says, he says, I will set nothing wicked before my eyes. Okay? Why? Because he understands that the eye is a gate, right? We, through our eyes and our ears, sometimes with our smell or our touch, but most of the things is through our eyes and our ears, right? That's how we learn, we perceive things. Okay? So if I'm putting something wicked in front of my eyes, then I'm beginning to meditate on that. I'm beginning to think about that. I'm like, oh, that looks cool, right? Then if I never done it before, okay, before I ever touched drugs, I never knew what it was like, what I was missing. Right? Until I started doing drugs and I realized, oh, I need it. Right? But before I ever touched it, I didn't ever have a yearning for it because I had never tried it. Okay? So, when he says, set nothing wicked before your eyes. Okay? So he says, David says, I will set nothing wicked before my eyes, because he understands that it could affect his relationship with the Father. Okay, now we hear that. Okay, now I go home. I have to leave here and I have a choice. My television. Okay, there's plenty of wicked things that I can put before my eyes that quick. Okay, you have a choice. Okay, everybody has a choice. See, the shepherd or the leader is not going to follow you home. Right? And go in your bedroom and call you and say, what are you watching? What channel is it on? Right? Because they're not supposed to do that. Okay? But it's my responsibility as an individual, what am I going to choose to do? Okay, if I choose to put something wicked before my eyes, then I can expect just what Adam got. Judgment, separation, and death. That's what my life's going to bring. Okay? Either the guilt of the things I'm doing wrong is going to keep me away from the ministry. Right? I know people like that all the time I talk to, and not in a bad way. I'm not bad-mouthing them in any way. But they talk to me, and then I'm just talking to them, and half the time I don't even say nothing. They go, I need to come back to service. I need to come back. What time service? And I tell them, and they never show up. Okay, why? Because of the guilt. Okay? And the enemy's, oh, you can't go back. You're too screwed up. Right? It ain't for you. It's constantly in your ear with guilt, guilt, guilt. Okay? Where does that come from? Because sin makes you feel guilty. And then he starts telling you, he don't love you no more. You screwed up. You gave him a bad name. Just get away from him. Quit. Just give it up. All right? So when you keep yourself separate, you separate yourself from the body of believers. You separate yourself from Yahuwah, right? Because what did they do? What did Adam and Hawah do? They try to hide. Right? Why? Because they knew they did something wrong. Okay? They were already separating themselves from Yahuwah. Okay? The Father was coming down to meet with Adam like he always did, to walk through the garden. And he said, where are you at? And he's like, what are you hiding for? Oh, because I was afraid. What are you afraid of? I was just afraid. Right? You see all the time a cop following somebody. Right? And they're fidgeting in the car. Right? What are they afraid of? They're doing something wrong. Okay? Or you're in a conversation and you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden somebody walks and you're talking this loud and all of a sudden they start coming, all right. See you later. Right? Your conversation maybe wasn't good. So when you're sinning or when there's something going on, it brings guilt. Okay? Then it brings shame. And it brings separation. And he's constantly, he's constantly telling you, you can't go back, you can't do this. It's not for you. It's not going to work. So, Noah, it says, did all that Yahuwah commanded him to do. Okay? So there's going to be things that we have to do. Okay? There's going to be things like it says, to heal him, which actually means, it's a Hebrew word, but it's where you get Psalms. To heal him actually means praises in Hebrew. That's the actual name of the book. And it means praises because there are a bunch of songs. Okay? But in the one it says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Right? We've all said it and people say it all the time. I will fear no evil. Right? Who is that guy? I share this all the time. Is that guy a sinner? Then why is he walking through the valley of the shadow of death? Right? He says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. He's talking about the Creator. He's talking about the Father. How's the Father going to comfort a sinner? That guy's not a sinner. He's a believer. Okay? Sometimes in our walk, everything is going to feel like death around us. You know what I'm saying? It's going to feel like, it feels like I'm not getting nowhere. It feels like nobody talks to me no more. All my old friends, or all the people I used to hang out with, people aren't calling me, this and that. Everything's not going like I planned. When I first got saved, everything was good. Now it seems like He doesn't love me. Seems like He's away from me. Everything's falling apart. What's going on? What's wrong? Okay? That's faith. Okay? If He tells us everything beforehand, we won't have no faith. If I get up tomorrow and He says, Chuck, here's what's going to happen. You're going to wake up tomorrow at 8:30. Then you're going to get dressed. 9 o'clock, you're going to go down to Albertsons to get your wife some milk. And as you walk in, somebody's going to cuss you out. Okay? And after they cuss you out, I want you to walk away from them. And I want you to go ahead and get your stuff. And on the way back out, they're going to say sorry and they're going to bless you with $100. So am I going to have faith? No. Because I already know. I'm going to be like, all right, I can do it. I'm walking up, can't wait, just get this over with. Cuss me out so I can come back and get my 100. Cuss me out. You cuss me out, I go get my milk, come back. I'm right. Hey, brother, here's your 100. Right? So that's no faith. Okay? Because he's telling me everything beforehand. Okay? That's what... See, we expect him to tell us everything. We expect him to know everything. Or when we pray to him, we want to tell him how we want it to happen. Okay, that used to be my problem. I would go and be meeting a friend or be meeting somebody, and I say, okay, all right, I can use me tomorrow. And this is what's going to happen. And we're going to be in the car, we're going to be riding, and then they're going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and then they're going to say this, and I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to pray for them. And then I get in the car, and we don't even get close to anything of that conversation. It's like totally, I'm like, dang, where's my window at? What? Right? Because I was already telling him how I wanted to happen, and it didn't happen the way I expected it to. Okay? So in that song, when he says, I'm walking through the valley of the shadow of death, okay, he's a believer, okay, but it feels like everything's dead around him. He doesn't feel spiritual, okay? We're not always going to feel spiritual, okay? We're not. Sometimes you're just not going to feel spiritual. Okay, you're not going to feel all fired up and all excited like you just sang 3 of your favorite songs back to back. Right? And when is the time you're going to be tested? Okay? Most of the time you're going to be tested is when you're emotionally upset or you're frustrated or you're excited. Okay, that's the real test. Okay? When you don't know what to do. Okay, are you able to calm yourself down and pray? And say, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I deal with this? So, in our walk with him, there's going to be times where it's not as comfortable as we want it to be. Okay, but what he's doing is he's building faith in us. Okay, look how he did with David. What did he do with David? Remember when he went to go fight Goliath? What did he say? He said, he goes up there and he goes, dude, I beat a bear. You think that was fun? For him meeting a bear? You think he woke up in the morning and said, I'm going to fight a bear today. Yeah! Right? He didn't know that. He didn't know that. He was up in the field. Next thing you know, here comes a bear rushing him. You know what I mean? What does he think? What would you think if you walked out the door, a bear just rushed you? You know what I'm saying? That'd be crazy. You'd be like, you know what I mean? Like, man. All right? What's wrong with you, Hawah? Why are you letting this bear get me? All right? What are you doing? What are you doing to me? All right? That's usually what we do, right? Why are you letting this happen to me? Why are you making me go through this? Why? All right? Because what he's trying to do is he's trying to get us to build faith and to trust him. That doesn't mean he makes things happen, okay? Things are going to happen naturally because people have their own free will choice. Okay? That doesn't mean the Father lets them happen. Okay? I got a free will choice just like anybody else. And when people choose to abuse their free will, then sometimes things happen. That doesn't mean the Father made it happen. That doesn't mean He let it happen so He can teach you faith or anything like that. Okay? But it says what the enemy meant for bad, He's going to use it for good. Okay? What the enemy meant to destroy you can become a testimony. Okay? You can help somebody else. Whatever it is you've been through. Okay? Him trying to destroy me through drugs and all that stuff and sending me to prison. Okay? Now I can use that as a testimony because if people have just came out of that, I know what it feels like to get out of prison, to have to be on parole, to have nothing, to not have a license, to have to pay all kinds of fines, to not being able to drive, to have to go to all these classes. Nobody wants to hire you. You know what I'm saying? And not being around certain people in the family because there's certain things that you can't be around. You know, I remember when I came home, I told some of my family members, I was like, I can't be around this. I can't do this. You know what I'm saying? For me to be here. And then the next day I came outside and there was beer cans and everything around. I'm like, man, I'm going to get sent back to prison for this. You know what I mean? So it's hard to feel like you're starting over. But He will take and use that, what the enemy meant to bring destruction in your life. Okay? What He'll do is He'll build faith. Maybe you've lost somebody in your life. You thought, you know what, I'm not going to be able to go on. You know what I'm saying? And in that moment you feel like I'm never going to be able to, this is going to be it for me. I don't see how I'm going to make it through the next day. You know what I mean? That's how you did it, is by Him. Whether you acknowledge it or not, or whether somebody else prayed for you and He was able to help you through, that's how you were able to get through that, is through Him. Okay? So what He's trying to do with us is He's using situations and circumstances, things that are normally occurring, things that the enemy are using to bring destruction, and he's using that to draw that closer to him. Okay? If David would have never beat that bear and that lion, he would have never had the faith and the courage to trust in Yahuwah to go and beat Goliath. He would have never did it. Okay? He wouldn't have been able to do that. Okay? So it's the same thing with us, but it says in the Word, I don't remember exactly where it's at, but it says, do not despise small beginnings. Okay? So everything's not always going to be grand. Okay? Sometimes it's just real simple. Okay? I want you to start doing this. Okay? With us, one of the things he started teaching us was about the Shabbat, about the Sabbath. Okay? He says, this is the day that you're supposed to worship. And then we had a choice to make. Well, everybody we know, and everybody does it on this day. And what are they going to say about us? What's going to happen? Or what are they going to think about us? Or what are they going to say? Are they going to start calling us Seventh-day Adventists? Or are they going to start putting us in that group or this group? Right? And there was a decision that had to be made. Okay? The Word is showing me this, and the Word is saying this flat out, but everybody's doing it this way. So now we have a choice to make. Do we follow the Word, or do we follow man? Okay? And it starts that small. Whatever it might be, it could be the littlest thing. He might tell you, okay, I want you to work on forgiveness. Okay? Or I want you to work on this. Okay? And here's where we run into problems. Is because let's say I have a problem drinking here and there. Right? And I go to a congregation and they say, I know there's 4 other people that have the same problem that I have. Okay? And I say, well, I'm not so bad. I'm not the only one. Right? There's 4 other people that are drinking too, so I'm good. I'm good. I'm okay. Right? But see, he deals with me and he deals with you differently. Okay? He might deal with me if I had a drinking problem with my drinking problem first. He might deal with this person with their lust problem first. And then he's going to deal with their drinking problem. Okay? So you never know the order of the way he's going to deal with things. But when he comes to you, he's asking you, okay, well, I see other people doing that. He said, I don't care what other people are doing. I'm talking to you. I'm asking you to do this. Or I'm asking you, what are you going to do? Okay? And he'll come to us individually on that. Okay? He can't use us to do huge and humongous and big things if we can't do little things. Okay? He wants us to do little things. To be faithful. Okay? He didn't tell... See, we don't know how long we read this verse here. But did you know it was years from the time that he told Noah to build the ark before actually the rain came? Did you know that it never rained on the earth before? That would be like somebody living in, let's say, I don't know, think of a desert place where there's no water right in the middle. Say there's like 500 miles away from water, and I go and buy a yacht and I put it in my yard. Everybody will laugh at me, right? They're like, yeah, Coachella. They're like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why you got that? Why you got that? Right? He was telling everybody that it's going to flood. Because from that time, if you read the Word, it said the water never came down like that. Okay? The water would come up from the bottom and the ground would be wet. And it would water. So there was never rain up to that point. So imagine year after year after year, people coming by him saying, look at that weirdo. Look at that crazy dude. He's a weirdo. Look at that weirdo family. What's that dude building that for? Right? It wasn't just 2 days. It wasn't just he's going to build it one day and tomorrow, bam. Right? You think Noah didn't get up some days thinking, man, he wrestled with doubt probably. How is it going to flood the earth? Right? Never having it seen happen before, right? How is that going to possibly happen? Man, people are looking at me weird. How is it affecting my children? People are making fun of them in school. Right? A lot of times family will tear you up. Right? You'll stop doing things because of family. Right? Imagine what his children had to go through. Coming home from school. Dad, they're calling you this and that. And They come home crying. Right? Why are they saying these things about you, Daddy? Right? And this was years. This wasn't like 2 years. His children, if they were a teenager or 10, they probably it was at least through high school. Right? So imagine that year after year. Imagine his neighbors. Imagine the people that knew him in his neighborhood in the city every day coming by. You're a weirdo, dude. You're the only one doing it. You're wrong. You're the only one. You're weird. You're off the hook. What's wrong with you? All right? But he had faith. Okay? Did he wrestle with his faith? I guarantee you he did. Because he's just like us. Okay? I wrestle with my faith. Everybody does. People that say they don't, they're lying to you. Okay? Not every morning you're going to wake up feeling super strong. Feeling like you're on top of the world, like you're ready for anything that comes your way. That's not true. Okay? The Word says, when I am weak, that you are strong. Now, who said that? That was Shaul, or Paul. All right? We used to call him Paul. That was Shaul. Okay? Who was that? Man, he wrote, I don't know how many books. Nobody would imagine him to be weak, right? He built more congregations probably than anybody else, right? He was beaten more than anybody else, right? He was starved more than anybody else. He was put in prison and dealt with things more than anybody else. And he's coming out and flat out and saying, I'm weak sometimes. See? It's a lie when we try to pretend like, oh, hallelujah, everything, man, I always feel great. Man, everything's just super all the time, and right? And I'm pretending. It wears you out to try to be something, you know what I mean? Try to pretend. It wears you out like, to try to put a mask and pretend like everything's okay when it's really not. Or when somebody comes around, then you're talking this way, but then around this person, your conversations change, or the way you act change, or you watch what you say around certain people. That takes too much energy. You know what I'm saying? It really does. It takes too much out of you to do all that. So, there's so many things here that he had to deal with. Okay? And it wasn't easy. Okay? And that's the same thing with us. Okay? What does it say? It says in the last days, there'll be many false. There'll be many deception. There'll be many false this. There'll be many false that. There'll be many lies. Okay? How are we going to figure out what's what? Okay? You can't go based on how long somebody's been preaching, or how many people are in their congregation. That don't. You got to go strictly by the Word. Okay. What happened? The reason why we've been led astray is because we quit double checking on what people said. Okay. There was one group of people. It talks about in here, and that's where they get the name Bereans. The bookstore. The Bereans was a group of people in the Scripture. Okay. Now Corinthians, that was a city, that was a letter to a ministry. Ephesians, that was a city. That was a letter to a ministry in the city of Ephesus. Okay. Now, one of the congregations that Shaul started was in Berea, which is where the Bereans come from. But why isn't there a book of Bereans in the Scripture? He never had to correct them. Okay? Because what they would do is, they didn't care how popular he was. Okay? They even did it with Shaul. They even did it with Paul. Paul would speak, and they would listen to what he had to say. They would go home, and they'll double check it. Yep, that's good. Oh, no, that's not good. Okay? So everybody that came into their town, or everybody that came into their city, everybody that came into that congregation that said something, if they weren't right, they would say, oh, you're wrong, brother. Show me in the Word where it says that. It doesn't say that in there. You know what I'm saying? So, Shaul or Paul never had to write a letter of correction to them. Most of the other ministries, when he wrote the letters, right, in Philippians, Galatians, Ephesians, Corinthians, he was doing a lot of correcting and a lot of rebuking. Why? Because they let people come in to the ministry and begin to teach things that didn't line up to the Word. So he had to go back and correct them. Okay? But if we check it and make sure everything lines up, we won't have that problem. Okay? This is just the beginning. It says there's going to be many. False this and false that. You know? What happens when there's an earthquake? And all of a sudden somebody comes and says, we found a document and it's dated back to this many years old and it's been scientifically proven by this great scientist from the highest university in all the world, and he says this is authentic, and it says that all religions are to come together, right? Because that's what we're headed to. Is a one world order. Is everything united under one religion? That's what the enemy's bringing together. Okay, he's uniting religions. How is he doing that? Because people are saying, well, we're not to judge one another. Okay, and we went through that scripture last week. Okay, what does it say? It says, judge not, that you would not be judged. It says, with the same judgment you use, it'll be used against you, the same measure. But the next scripture says, first get the plank out of your eye. Then you can help the brother get the speck out of his eye. So it doesn't say not to judge. It just says to make sure you're right, then you judge. Okay? Not judge is like you put someone down, but you correct. Okay? You rebuke them or you exhort them. Okay? And a lot of people are afraid of the word rebuke, but that's not a bad thing. Okay? I don't tell people, hey, stupid, you're wrong. All right? You don't tell people like that. I taught you that, dummy. All right? That's not like how the Messiah would do. He didn't do that to people. All right? Usually I'll say, look at what I learned. Man, I didn't even realize it. Because most of the time I didn't. You know what I mean? I don't come and act like, oh, wow, I know all this stuff and you don't know it. I just barely found out all kinds of stuff. I've realized all kinds of things I was doing that wasn't according to the Word. Okay? So I'm not going to go and talk down to you. Oh, you're wrong. It's like this. And I know. All right? I'm going to say, look at what I learned. Because that's what I learned. Look at what I learned. Man, I was wrong the whole time. I'm not going and pretending that, oh, I'm high, you're low, let me teach you. All right? Because that's not being humble. Okay? So there's a way to approach people, but we have to do that. We have to, and you have to stand for what the Word says. Okay? You can't be swayed by what people are saying. You know what I mean? Or what people think. Right? It talks about all the time the traditions of men. Okay? Well, I think this. Well, I don't care what you think, not to be rude to you, but what does the Word say? Okay? I had an incident last week with some people I know in their congregation, you know, and they're in a denomination which them things aren't good. Denominations aren't good. But anyways, they're in this denomination and they're having this problem with homosexuality. And they're having this problem with lesbians and gays being ordained and teaching in the ministry. Okay? And I said, well, what's going on with your guys' whole denomination thing? And they said, oh, well, because there's so many people, the denomination says, well, we're going to leave it up to each individual congregation. Right? What is that saying? I don't want to say nothing because maybe half of the ministry will leave and then we won't have as much money as we... Right? We don't want to look like our numbers are going down. Okay, so you decide whatever you want to do over here, and whatever you want to do over here, you decide. Well, that's not good, right? Because the Word, it says it flat out in the Word. Okay, and I was telling them, I said, you got to go, and I gave them scriptures, and I said, you got to show them. Okay, you got to show them the Word. You don't be rude, but you just show them. Okay, you show them exactly what it says, and you show them this is what the Word says, and not to offend you, not nothing personal, but this is what the Word says. Because it's happening everywhere. Okay? And it's going to be attempted in so many different ways. Okay? It costs a lot. I mean, when we learned about the name, we learned about the Messiah's name, we learned about the Father's name, it cost us a lot. There was a lot of things we had to change. Okay? A lot of everything. You know, we tell people, we come across, man, I was telling you the wrong thing. Check this out, you know. As I used to tell people, come up here and say this prayer and you're saved. All right? And you're all good. So then they come up here and say it and they think, well, I can walk out and just live however I'm living. No, that's completely wrong. Okay? It's an introduction. Okay? To the Messiah. That's just the beginning. That's not the end. See, we used to tell them, come up here and say this prayer. Hey, you're going to be saved and everything's going to be all good. No. Now we realize is I'm introducing you to the person who's to save you. And you need to read this book and learn about him. Okay? You need to learn about what he's asked you to do. What he's called you to do. You need to learn about his instructions. You need to learn about how to live your life through this book. It's not just a one-time thing. It's a constant. Right? It's a relationship. So, Noah had it hard. Okay? And in these last days, it's only going to get harder for us. Right? As far as in that way, standing for the truth. But I'd rather stand for the truth, right? And deal with what I have to deal with and escape the judgment and escape all that and to have peace. Okay? Because regardless of what goes on around, you can still have peace. Okay? You're still going to cry. You know what I mean? I've been saved for a while, but I still cry. I still get my feelings hurt. I still get upset. I still get mad at people. I still sometimes don't want to forgive people. Right? I'll sit there and wrestle with it. He's like, I want you to call them. No, they're going to call me first. They're the ones that are saying stuff about me. I didn't even say nothing first. I ain't calling them. You can call. I ain't calling them. I don't want to. I'm mad. He's like, son, but let this. He said, what'd you do to them? I don't care what they did to you. I don't care how many things they did to you. I said, I didn't even say nothing to them. I was just thinking bad things about them. So what? All right? I want you to call them and tell them you're sorry for thinking bad things about them. All right? And I was like, man, that's weird because isn't that kind of weird? It's like you never actually said it to them. And I'm thinking like, you know how many things they did to me? That the reason why I was thinking them things? If they wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't even have went there. Okay? But he's saying, I don't want you to deal with it like that. He said, what I want you to do is I want you to go and deal with your part. Okay? And it don't matter if they deal with theirs or not. Sometimes he's having me do that, and people say, you're apologizing to me? For what? I was the one that was doing things to you. And then other times, people will say, oh, all right, thank you. Yeah, you knew you were wrong. All right? And I just have to bite my tongue and walk away like, all right, all right? I did my part. I'm free from that. Okay? I'm not stuck in that no more. Okay? So we have to guard like Adam. Okay? Adam did not guard. Okay? He had instructions, he had rules, and he didn't guard and protect them. Okay? And sometimes he's going to tell people different things than he tells you. Okay? Sometimes you're going to learn something. He says we're the body. Okay? I know a part. Other people know a part. Okay? Other people know things that I don't know. Okay? Now, it's up to them whether they're going to stand up and say, hey, this is what I learned and this is the truth. Or we're doing this wrong. Last week we were here and like I said, we started having a service on the Sabbath. We've been doing it for a while. And there was other scriptures in there about certain things we're not supposed to do. And one of these things says we're not supposed to buy and sell on that day. Okay? Now, I like this, okay? And it was cool. And it was weird. Because it was a bad thing. There was other people, even in this congregation, that knew but didn't tell me, okay, that I wasn't doing something right about the Sabbath. But this brother shows up here 2 weeks ago. And we have service. And he goes, and I'm walking out the door and somebody says, hey, is there leftover food? And I'm like, oh, there's no more food. I'm going to order some pizza. And I just met the guy. I only talked to him for about 10 minutes. And I started walking out the door, and he comes up to me, and he goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm calling to order some food. He goes, what are you doing? He says, you can't order no food. He said, it's a Sabbath. What does it say? He says, you're not supposed to exchange no money. You're not supposed to buy and sell on this day. He goes, don't you do that. All right? And I hung the phone up. Right? I could have got angry because I said, who you think you are? I don't even know you like that to talk to me like that. Right? But he actually did me a favor. As soon as he started talking, Yahuwah reminded me of the scripture and I already knew it. I was like, oh, you're right. He didn't even finish telling me and I already knew. I'm like, you're right. But there were some other people here that knew but didn't tell me. Why didn't they tell me? Why wouldn't they tell me? Right? There's some things that we know, right? That we can't just pretend like, oh, well, I don't want to upset them. I don't want to offend them. Right? There's a nice way about telling somebody something that's the truth, okay, that can save them, than to not tell them, okay? So, he had a hard time. And like I said, because we read through it so fast, we could read this chapter probably in about 4 minutes. We think like, oh, one day Yahuwah told him to do this, and then the next day the ark came, and the water came, and he was saved, and yay, everything's happy. Right? It wasn't like that. It was years. I mean, this dude lived, he was 600 years old when the waters came. Okay? 600 years. So it could have been I'm sure if I sat and read, or somebody sat and read, they probably can calculate it out. But it could have been 100 years. Imagine, man, I've only been alive for 35. I couldn't even imagine dealing with that for 35 years. Right? For someone saying, oh, look at you, weirdo. Right? Imagine the label that he had on him and on his family and on everything. And imagine how hard it was every day wondering, man, am I really a weirdo? Man, it's been 60 years. And you told me to build this and steal the water yet? Man. Right? Because he didn't tell him what day. Just like he doesn't tell us. He don't say, you're going to pray for this, and February 2nd at 11:15 is going to be the answer. He doesn't tell us that. Okay, that's what faith is. That's what faith and trusting Him and say, okay, I trust you. Okay, I don't understand. But the one thing I do understand is that you love me. Okay, that's what I tell myself sometimes. You love me. You'll never leave me, and you won't forsake me. Okay, even though it feels like you left me. I know you're not a liar, so I know you're still here. Even though I don't feel you, even though I don't feel strong, even though I don't feel spiritual. Okay, I'm living right by you. Okay, I'm doing the best I can. When I make a mistake, I repent. Okay, I try not to make that same mistake again, or I get better at it. I get faster at it. Okay, that's when you know. Okay, we're going to make mistakes, but if you keep making the same mistake 500 times, you're not living right by Him. There's a problem. Okay, when I make a mistake, I say, what happened? How did I do it? Show me where it came from. Show me the trap, or show me how I got off track, so I don't do it again. Okay. When I started changing my language, it was a long time, and I was so upset. I was in prison. I was so mad. I was mad one day. I said, I'm never talking again. Sick of this. Right? Because I had such a bad mouth that it was like unconscious. Out of my mouth, boop, 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 like 3 cuss words, like off the top, and I'm like, oh! I was like, oh! Somebody would talk to me, and I would literally talk out the whole sentence in my mind before I could say it out of my mouth. Because if not, I would have cussed. Because that's just how I talk. And it took me a long time. And I got better little by little by little by little. Okay, it took me a while. But I was progressing. Okay, I was catching it faster. Pretty soon I was, not supposed to say that. Right? Then pretty soon I was getting faster to where I wasn't saying it, but I was thinking it. I was like, boop, I'm not supposed to think that. So it wasn't coming out of my mouth. So I got better and better and better and better. Okay, that's the same thing with our walk with Him. Okay? He's going to ask us to do some things. There's a lot of things that need to be adjusted. Okay, we see it already. Okay? He's exposing. Okay? And nobody likes that, and it's horrible, but you see it. You see, like, ministers being with boys and all these other weird things that they're doing, you know what I mean? Is because as the time gets closer, the Father's going to expose all that stuff. He has to in order to get us right. Okay? So, you got to just trust Him. Okay? As you read the Word, you build faith. Okay? Think about it when you're reading the Scripture next time, because, you'll see like Jeremiah, which is Jeremiah's name in Hebrew. Okay? When he was in prison. Read that one verse. Oh, he was in prison, and 2 verses later he was out of prison. We never thought about how long was he in prison. What kind of prisons did they have back then? They dumped them dudes in the sewer. He was sitting in poop and pee. Alright? For, I don't know, how many days? It doesn't say. Could have been a month. Alright? Imagine what he's thinking, right? As soon as the Father started dealing with me because I wouldn't do things wrong, people would do things to me, and I say, first thing I start crying to him, why do you let this happen to me? All the things I do for you, why are you letting this happen to me? Right? That was what he used to tell him. And he's like, he said you laid down your life. So why are you complaining? He said, you say you want your family members to be saved, right? And I said, yeah, I want them to be saved. And he said, I'm working on it. How? By making me go through this? Yeah, because they're seeing how you act differently now. And they're going to see something different about you than acting the same way you used to act. Okay? Because people, see, a word doesn't mean nothing anymore. You know what I'm saying? The time we live in, you can't go buy a car with a handshake no more like back in the day. Right? You better sign some papers and give me a copy of your ID and all kinds of stuff. Your account number and the down payment. I don't trust you. Right? Nobody trusts nobody these days. Right? A word is no good. So I can go and tell somebody all kinds of things. They're like, okay, we'll see. We'll see. And then as soon as they see me blow up, yeah, that's what I thought. Exactly what I thought. Right? That's how it works. Okay? So it's an example. It's by how we live, by the things we do, that makes a difference now. Okay? We can't just tell people because people already ruined that for everybody. Right? By not being honest. Okay? So now people want to see it. Show me. Okay? Oh, you say you're different? Then let me see something different. Show me something different. Like I said, when I was in prison, this guy, man, he wasn't even saved. But this dude knew more about the things I was doing wrong than I did. Right? And he was called, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Thought you were a believer. Believers don't do that. And I would look at him like, man, I wanted to get mad at him. Like, who do you think you are? Right? You don't even read the word. I wanted to get upset with him, but he was right. He said, you call yourself a believer and you do that? And I wanted to get angry at him, but he was telling the truth. So I couldn't get angry at him. He actually helped me get better. Right? Because he was telling me all the things. He was like, you call yourself a believer? Right? And I'll be like, first thing I want to do with my flesh is, look at you. You're worse than me. At least I'm trying. Right? Before I left, he ended up telling me, because he gave me a hard time, but he ended up telling me, you know what? He goes, I used to be a believer. After he gave me that whole hard time, and because, I was in prison and, it was natives, so them were the people I was supposed to be around with natives, but I ended up having to go my own way because they didn't want to let me read my word. So I told him, I said, well, then I'll just be by myself and, whatever. And I was afraid, but the Father protected me. But in the end, he ended up coming and telling me, yeah, I used to be a believer. I used to read the word. And I'm thinking, man, this guy over here, he gave me all this hard time, you know what I'm saying, and talking so much about it, but never want to admit the fact that he used to do it himself. But everything ended up working out. It was fine. So remember that when you read. They went through a lot, okay? They struggled like we struggled, We tend to look at them and we think, oh, wow, they're so awesome, and they did great things, don't get me wrong. But believe me, in their mind, they still wrestle with some things too. Jeremiah, they told him, he said, I think it was him, it was either him or Yeshayahu, which is Isaiah. He told him, I want you to go and stand in front of the ministry and tell the leaders that they're wrong. He's probably like, oh, wow, that guy, I don't know. That might be the devil talking to me. It might not be the right thing to say. It might not be the right thing to do. Right? There's always going to be that. We're going to have to wrestle with that doubt and that fear. But we just have to overcome it by faith. Listen to him, understand, wow, that's his voice. I know that's his voice. I know that's what he's called me to do. That's what I'm going to do. Okay? So let's stand up. We're going to close in prayer. All of us have an opportunity. Everybody in the world has an opportunity to be a part of his family. Okay? And everybody was created with gifts or abilities, the body. Okay? He speaks to all of us. Okay? He teaches through all of us. All of us get different things in different revelations. Okay? And we need each other. Okay? Whatever truths that we have, or whatever things that we're called to walk in, we need to walk in them. Okay? Because they're not just for us to keep. It says in the Word, freely you receive, freely you give. Okay? It's also the Word. We receive something of truth, and we're supposed to give it to somebody else. We're not supposed to hold it and just, oh, no, I don't know if they want to hear me. I'm just going to. Alright? So understand that we're all a body. We all have things to offer. Okay? It's not just one person. Okay? It's not just whoever's the leader of the congregation or the worship leader. Because they can only be so many places. Okay? In everyday life, you have an opportunity to touch people's lives and different people in different places. So, I just want to pray tonight that He'll give us the strength to continue to go on and give us the faith that we need as He begins to reveal these truths in the Word and things that we're supposed to do, that we'll be able to stand and they'll be confirmed by His Spirit. Okay? Once things are confirmed, then it's easier for you. I remember when we were learning the name and stuff, and I was like, I'm not sure. And then I had a dream. And in my dream, there was no man, no woman told me. It was a dream. And I woke up from that dream and I said, that's it. I know it. You know what I'm saying? And I knew at that point, it's like, okay, this is what it is. I know it's this. And there's going to be things I'm going to have to deal with because of it. But I know it's that. And I have to be true and faithful to that. So, Yahuwah, we just thank you for this evening. We ask that you would just help us wherever we are with you. Maybe we're feeling that we're walking through that dark place, that dark time. We're walking with you, but we feel like you're nowhere near us. We ask that you give us the faith to trust you. It does say you'll never leave us or forsake us. And you'll help us and you'll guide us and you'll lead us as we continue to walk and we continue to prepare ourselves for your return, Yahushua. We continue to prepare ourselves and get ourselves ready as you are coming back for a bride without spot and blemish. We thank you. We honor you tonight in Yahushua's name. Amen. If you need prayer, you can come up. If not, you are dismissed. Thank you for tuning in by CD, DVD, or stream.